Hi, I'm Dr. Josh Hant, and welcome to Lifestyle Locker Radio, where we help you create an awesome life and lifestyle. From nutrition to fitness, mindfulness to peak performance, and relationships to money mindset, we bring you on an amazing journey to help you unleash your human potential. Hey everyone, welcome back to Lifestyle Locker Radio. Today we are going to be diving in to something called the General Adaptive Principle. Very cool. I think you're going to totally dig it. But I'm going to share some stuff. So I'll share a link in the show notes for you. So if you're looking for some visuals, looking for some of the things I'll be talking about, I'm actually recording this via video so we can put up all of the links. So I'll be sharing a couple things. I'm going to be talking about this General Adaptive Principle, and I have this really cool book in front of me here. I'm going to share it on the video, called Gray's Anatomy. This is the 1965 edition, 1967 edition. And today we're going to talk a little bit about something called, hold on there, you can see it, the nervous system. Not to get you nervous about it, but the nervous system is the master control system. If we start to search this online, you'll find it everywhere. The mainframe of this human structure we live in is the nervous system, is the brain, is the spinal cord that goes down, and all the nerves that go out to branch out to every single cell, tissue, organ inside the whole human body. It's actually quite amazing. I would definitely recommend going online, type in central nervous system, peripheral nervous system, and start to look at some of the anatomy. If anybody has gotten a chance to ever see the body's exhibits, though they're sometimes a little controversial, you get to see some pretty amazing anatomy, and you get to see how the nervous system and how they were able to do these dissections is quite amazing. But the nervous system is so intricate, so delicate, yet so powerful. So let's talk about the central nervous system, and we're going to put the pieces of the structure together. I want to just align. You all know I'm a chiropractor, so I'm going to dive in a little bit here. We're not going to get too heady, too nerdy, but we're going to talk about some concepts that are super powerful. So just to give you a visual here, on the screen now, I have something called a Merrick chart. This is a side view of an MRI, which shows the brain, the spinal column, the spinal cord, and it's a little fuzzy ultimately where those organs are because it's a slice, right? So the MRIs are slices of the body when we look at the imaging. So what this actually shows in here, when we talk about the central nervous system, we know the brain, we said, is the mainframe, the main hub, and information has to go down the spinal cord, goes out through 24 moving spinal bones into 31 different pairs of nerves, spinal nerves that go out to everything. And the way that the system works, and we're going to keep this simple, I want you to think of the shape of a safety pin. Safety pin being a loop. I don't have one here in front of me. Otherwise, actually, I have a paper clip doesn't count. The safety pin is a closed loop system. And what I mean by that is this. So the way the brain talks to the body and receives information is very important. So it's going to go send information out of the brain, right? It's going to send it down the nervous system, down the spinal cord from the brain, out to the specific areas of the body, whether it be your big toe, whether it be your stomach, or telling your heart to beat or lungs to breathe, or to do some of those chemical functions. Thank God we don't have to think about as humans. So the information is constantly being sent out. And when something is done and instruction is given to the body or body part, that information is now coming back up to let the brain know what is done and give it all of the details it needs to give them. So this is happening 3 million times a second. So the image that you see on the screen is actually really neat. And, this is something we actually have in our office. It says, maximize the health of your spine so you can maximize the health of your body, right? We're talking about health resilience. And when we look at this image, we know that the actual spinal column houses the spinal cord, and it goes right up to the base of the brain stem, right? That's where the spine starts, and it goes all the way down to your tailbone. I know many of you have probably even fallen on that at some time. That is definitely not pleasant. So when we look at the image here, it's really neat. So the direct connection, this is an autonomic nervous system chart, meaning this just shows the connection to the different body organs that we're looking at when we go to the nerves. Just to give you an example, what I see, and when hopefully you can just tune in over to the video on YouTube at some point just to check out some of the imagery. Really neat. So I'm going to block my face here so I can see this clearly. You're going to see I actually have one on the back wall behind my left shoulder there. Um, so C1, here's just an example of what it goes to. Blood supply to the face, the brain, immune function. C2, eyes, ears, sinuses. And this is not the Grey's Anatomy textbook like I just showed you before. This just shows those direct connections. So what our job is to do with chiropractic is we look at the alignment of the spine, and when the alignment is off in the spine, and then we're talking millimeters. I mean, if we have a scoliosis, that's a big global shift in the spine, but we're talking millimeters of movement in the spine, not inches or feet. So when we have these misalignments, we can start to slowly interfere with the way those nerves function and perform, which ultimately affects where those nerves go, and then that information coming from those areas back to the brain as well. So it's a discommunication possibly in both directions. When we look at the nerves, I want you to think of the nerves in a version of a pie chart. I don't have the image here to share with you, but if you remember a pie chart, from elementary school, maybe some of you are in business and use this on a very regular basis. But if we were to take a pie chart and take the top 90%, or the 90% of that chart, 90% of that chart is split into 45% each. And what we'll see is that we're called motor nerves are about 45%. That's the animation. You see me moving. If you're watching the video, I can't stand still. I move around, move my arms, I talk. I'm not Italian, I'm Jewish, Eastern European guy, but I may talk like an Italian because I'm a New Yorker and my hands move all over the place. But that being said, 45% of the nervous system deals with the motor portion of your body, meaning the movement, the muscles. And the other 45% deals with the autonomic system, which is that automatic system. And the 10% deals with something called sensory or sensation nerves. And those nerves give us, sensation of what's going on, but also when irritated, those will give us discomfort. When we look at those top other two pieces with the autonomic system, we can have, a suppressed immune system. We can have, when it's getting interfered with, right? We can have digestive issues. We can have reproductive issues. If we go to the muscle side, if those nerves are getting interfered with, we can have fatigue. We can have achiness, soreness. We can even have atrophy of muscles. So when the nerves all get interfered with, different things happen. And I know many people, hopefully not you, but maybe you, most people run to the medication, to their, I call it, it's not really a medicine cabinet, but that's what they call it if you put drugs inside of it. But that mirror cabinet on the wall in your bathroom, we pop it open and we'll take something because we have something that's affecting inside that pie chart, right? I may feel sick. I may have a pain somewhere. I may do something. But ultimately what happens is we start to hide issues which could be a little bit more serious than just a feeling or just a sensation. So when we look at the whole body and the whole person in the chiropractic office, and we're going to dive more into this general adaptive principle in a second, but I think it's just important to know, most people base their health on what? The 100%? No, they base it on that 10% at the bottom, that sensory portion. And that's very, very scary, because when we see the rise of lifestyle-based disease, heart disease, cancer, diabetes, and knowing that polypharmacy, knowing that iatrogenic death, meaning doctor-caused death, in the medical world is the third leading cause of death in the United States. Quite scary. So I want to hopefully help keep most of those people out of that iatrogenic area, so they're doing things proactively in their health and in their life so they can stay healthy. So I'm going to circle back into the chiropractic world right now for a second. So when we analyze someone, we mentioned that there are 24 moving bones which have spinal nerves coming out of them. There's discs and sponges in between, so it allows us to bend, twist, turn, move, and do all of these really important things that we do as humans. When that misalignment happens, when that global distortion may be happening to the spine, sometimes we have slow-moving targets, something like a scoliosis, which if not caught early, tends to progress and get worse. Most of the time, they are not something you were born with. We do see that it's at a very, very, very small portion of what I see. I'm probably saying like the 1% in our practice we see as something that's congenital they were born with. Most people have adapted and created the curvatures over time, not knowing it's actually happening. So we have these slow moving targets which can interfere with the way the nerves function slowly over a long period of time. Or you can even have what we call an acute or a chronic vertebral subluxation. These are these subtle misalignments in the millimeters we were talking about, which can slowly interfere with the function of the nerves. And this is the scary part, because what happens, we start to decrease the function of the body. I'm going to use the word function more than feeling, because 90% is function, 10% is feeling, 100% is living. But I want to talk about the functional portion of this, because you can interfere with quite a bit of that nerve before you actually even have some sensation. And I'm not talking about, hey, listen, you dropped a rock on your toe and you broke your toe, or you kicked a door frame or something like that. That we already know where that injury came from. We know what's going on, right? We address it as needed, whether it's emergency medicine or whatever it may be. So when we look at the way this discomfort shows up in our life, and these problems start to show up in our lives, and these subtle misalignments and subluxations start to show up in our lives, we say we can have acute or chronic. An acute subluxation can be something from, something like playing football as a kid. Could be getting out of bed too fast as a senior citizen and twisting and tweaking your low back or your neck or your mid back. There are so many different ways. It can even go far back as to the birth process, especially if it's been done in a hospital. There's an extreme amount of tension and pressure that gets put on a baby's neck in a hospital, right? There's a lot of twisting and turning and torquing, and I know they call it birth trauma, but that's unfortunately very normal in that world. So, spinal trauma can happen, or spinal injury can happen as far back as the birth process, and people can live with it for a very, very, very long time, which is quite scary. Which, when we have those acute problems show up, when they're not addressed, or they're not even found, or not even noticed, or we don't know what to do, or should I go to a chiropractor? How do I know? These things can become chronic. And when problems become chronic in the structure in the spine, which eventually start to affect, or they do affect, not eventually, they do affect the central nervous system and the spinal nerves that come out. When we have those spinal things that become chronic, those spinal injuries, we can start to see some wear and tear, some uneven wear and tear. And some people oh, that uneven wear and tear, that arthritis, that degeneration that's going on, is that because I'm 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years old? Is it? Not necessarily. Because if that was the case, if we wanted to use age as the determining factor for degeneration, with the 24 moving bones in the spine, if we look at your spine, right, we have 7 bones in the neck. We'll just use that as an example. If I find arthritis or degeneration in between two bones in one joint, but I don't find it in all the other ones, are all of the other bones the same age? Is that one that's deteriorating or breaking down? Yeah, of course they are. So I don't like to use age. That's a chronic misalignment that's been staying in that position for a long period of time, which, like a car tire out of alignment in the millimeters. Cars, I think, are probably measured in millimeters or centimeters of how far out of alignment they are. If you leave it long enough, you're going to need to replace a tire. You can't really do that too well with the spine. So let's circle back. So the alignment, now that you know how important alignment is, that's the first thing. And now let's step back and look at the nervous system from the 50,000 foot view. And I'm going to share something with you called the general adaptive principle. This is something that I think, this concept is so neat. It's something I learned many, many, many years ago. And I'm really glad that I remembered to actually share this with all of you, because this is powerful. When we talk about the body being healthy, our body, we talked about it, the adaptation. The nervous system is constantly adapting. The nervous system is the system in the body which tells us to adapt. And here's a simple example of adaptation. I'm standing here talking, moving back and forth. My heart rate is nice and low, probably in the 50s or 60s at this point, maybe a little higher because I'm bouncing everywhere. But if I were to go outside right now and run down my driveway, sprint to the end of the block, come back and come talk to you, I would be able to look at my heart rate on my watch and see, wow, my heart rate's at 125 beats per minute instead of 50 or 60 beats per minute. So my brain was smart enough to realize that I'm putting this exerted force throughout my body. It starts to realign and do things that it needs to do internally, so my body can adapt and raise my heart rate up, pump more oxygen, make me breathe deeper, so all my muscles get oxygen, so I can do what I was doing. I can do that run. So that's how we adapt. And obviously the opposite can happen. Just think of being awake and being asleep. Our heart rate's going to change depending on what we're doing. That's just one example of adaptation. So when we adapt to our environment really, really well, both internally and externally, means we're really healthy, right? The better we can adapt, the faster, the more efficient we can adapt, the healthier we become. So I'm going to share an image with you, and I'm going to describe it to you for those of you that are listening. So I put a little graph together here, and the graph shows the general adaptive principles, not the G.A.P, the store where we go shopping for clothes. I'm going to see if I can actually make this a little bigger for you. There we go, just to get myself out of the image. So when we look at this, and we're looking at this chart, and for those of you that are listening, You remember what a graph looks like. You have bars that are going up and down from left to right. That's the type of graph we're going to be looking at right now. And I have 5 different bars that are going up and down at different heights, right? So we have, I call them stress 1, stress 2, stress 3, stress 4, and stress 5. And we started to go from 5 to 15, down to 9, up to 14, up to 18. So we have a lot of different types of stressors that show up throughout our day and time. So we're going to look at this from left to right. And the numbers on the left side that are indicative of where that stress level is, they're just made up numbers. So they don't really necessarily mean you have 14 different stressors. I mean, we can use it that way, but it doesn't necessarily mean that way. So the general adaptive principles, you see that bottom line, right? That bottom line is where our body is normally adapting to different stressors in our lives. And we may have like a mild work stress in the first one, it's a 5, and it's just coming a little above that line. So we may get a little, frustrated. We may get a little achy. Our body may feel a little run down. Stress 2 may be, holy cow, how do I manage 3 kids? How do I manage working from home? How do I manage life right now? I'm overly stressed out. I'm freaking out. And your stress level is a 15 instead of a 5 for this next one. It's way above that red line. And that may give you headaches. That may give you may actually allow you to start to get sick. It may make you have some kind of panic attack. Stress 3 is a 9. You can see these different things start to happen. Stress 4 is a 14 and 18. So when you're above that first line, which is probably at a 4.5 across the board, the stressors we have in our lives start to affect us mentally, physically, emotionally, to a point that is creating something internally in our body. Our body's freaking out, right? I'm freaking out, man. No, I'm just kidding. Our body's freaking out. So how this principle works, the better our body is able to adapt. So that bar that's going across that 4.5 to 5, well, if we can raise that bar, and I'll tell you how we do that in a second, if we raise that bar to 12 or something, where I think it may be right now, or 13 or 14, and we look at that bar across, the stress, that initial stress that was a 5, our body just knocks that thing right back. It has zero impact. The stress that was a 15, and now we're right at a 12, 13, 14, wherever this is across this bar here, that stress that was insane, giving us all of these problems, made you feel like, I can rub it off. I feel a little achy at the end of the day. My brain, I have a little brain fog. I'm okay. The one that was a 9, which is the next one, non-existent. It doesn't even affect your body anymore. It doesn't affect the way your body adapts anymore. Stress 14, we're kind of like, we'll call that one a wash. And 18 may give you the one that was like probably off the charts, which, could give you like that mental, physical breakdown, is now that mild stress. So the gap, that space in between the bottom line that's horizontal and the top line that's horizontal, that general adaptive potential, right? We want to be able to have this huge potential to adapt. We do that by strengthening the central nervous system and the nervous system as a whole. And how do we do that? So the great thing is that chiropractic works specifically with this. Chiropractic actually works with your body's central nervous system. So if you're coming into a chiropractic office, my office, and you have discomfort, yeah, of course. Do we want you to be out of pain? Without a doubt, 100%. Unfortunately, pain is a gift, letting us know something is wrong. And that's why we have to get these things checked out. But we ultimately know that your central nervous system will function, perform, and heal better, or even the whole body can function, perform, and heal better when our nervous system is finely tuned, when we start to reduce these subluxations, these misalignments, when we start to help the structure and the posture of the whole body start to become better, so it wears down slower or not at all. Well, what happens is you start to raise the bar, and that's where those 2 horizontal bars come. The higher bars, as you start to go under some longer-term chiropractic care, your body's nervous system is getting healthier and healthier. Your body's getting stronger, more resilient, and being able to adapt better to both its internal and external environments. And other things that are going to help increase this. This is important to understand, really important to understand, that I don't want you to think that chiropractic is the be-all, end-all to your health. It's a huge piece that can make a huge impact on your life. I've been getting adjusted for 41 years. I'm not sure if all of you have heard that yet, but I've been getting adjusted for 41 years. And do I rarely, or do I ever get sick? I mean, it's like so minuscule if I do. I may have like I'll call it a head cold feeling for a day, or I feel like garbage for a day. And that's usually me when I go beyond my stress threshold, right? That's when it happens. Here's a perfect example. A handful of weeks ago, as you remember, if you've been following Lifestyle Locker Radio, I did a 100-mile ultra endurance marathon, meaning running 100 miles straight through from end to end without, stopping. It's not a multi-day thing. It's one day. So I did I did 100 miles in 22 hours and 37 minutes. So that was a crazy amount of physical and mental and emotional strain on my body. It's the longest run I've ever done. So I finished the run, still high on some endorphins, unable to move, uncomfortable and in a little bit of pain after running, not really able to sleep. And the following days, I felt like garbage, right? My body was run down. It was exhausted. It was depleted of nutrients. It was physically run down, literally, from pushing 4 marathons essentially in one day. But the great news is, being that I've had that really high general adaptive principle, or I can adapt really, really well. I've been getting adjusted for 41 years and having a really decent lifestyle, at least the past 15 to 20 years. I can adapt and change really quick. So my 100-mile ultra marathon didn't knock me out for a month or weeks. It was about a week of time that I needed to really get the full body recuperated, get the sore muscles work themselves out, let my energy levels come back up, let my body fight off the things that were probably holding me down. And I bounced back. So I was able to adapt really, really quick. So to build the gap, the things that are going to help build the gap is one is chiropractic care, more in the long term versus the short term. The second thing is lifestyle shifts. That's important to understand. So a lifestyle shift or a proactive lifestyle are things, and here we're just going to break it down. I teach something called the 30-65 Lifestyle Shift Program, which I'll have that in the show notes for you. It's an amazing program, but it works. We don't necessarily talk about the gap in there, but these are the lifestyle tools that will help raise that bar a little bit. So when your nervous system is finely tuned, you keep raising that bar, and you raise it in a really good kind of way. So things like moving, exercise, right? Moving your body. And in the 30-65 program, we try to keep people consistent with just 2 miles a day, 7 days a week, walking, running, biking, hiking, doing things that are consistent movement. Then we also, that's the physical leg of our lifestyle stool. The second piece of that stool is the chemical or biochemical portion, meaning we want you to start to eat cleaner, eat better, eat smarter. The things that you put on or in your body, making sure they're organic, making sure they're free from toxins that you don't want to have on or in your body. The third piece is the mental emotional portion. And there we talk about a lot of things like breath work, like meditation, sleep, a lot of really neat things. So those three things, the mental, the physical, and the biochemical legs of that stool, will give you a good foundation for self-care, right? For your body to be able to keep adapting the best that it can. And then that chiropractic is the icing on top. But the icing, if we take that stool, ultimately, if you think of a three-legged stool, chiropractic, we want to flip the stool upside down for a second. Chiropractic really is the foundation, right? Because the healthy nervous system is essential for you to digest your good food, for your nervous system to function well so you can meditate better, for your body to biomechanically be able to move and run and walk without causing new issues in the body. So chiropractic is really foundational in my life, and I hope it becomes for you. But if we start to add these adaptabilities into our lives, holy cow, you start to create that amazing gap from where you were to where you're going to go. And that gap doesn't need to stop. I truly believe in human performance and human potential. And I don't really see a cap. I mean, we see people breaking a 4-minute mile. We see people running, I ran 100 miles, which for me was like, holy cow. But there are people running 240 miles, 300 miles, being able to push their body to some of the most extreme limits and bounce back. So I truly believe in that. So the gap, how high can we go? I don't know. But it's the best place to start and best time to start is now and with yourself. So let's just finish up here. Let me get rid of this off the screen. I think that you have the biggest opportunity, the best potential to become the healthiest, best person in your life if you can increase the gap and get that adaptation to a new high. And whether you are, a teenager or whether you are pushing 60, 70, 80 years old or more, you can start now. You don't have to be like, well, I'm too old or I'm too young. Health and life don't wait for you to make a decision. They're going to keep going forward no matter what. Unless you get a time machine, which I haven't figured out yet how to do, time's going forward. So let's just do things that are proactive. Let's be awesome in our choices. Let's make the best choices, obviously. And that's it. So let us know, share a comment, leave a review, head over to our social media pages, which will be in the show notes as well, and let us know that you're enjoying and loving what's going on. I want to make sure that we can support you the best that you can. And please check out that 3065 program. It chunks it down in about a 3.5-minute video, describes what we do and what we, the problem that we're trying to solve, but it also will give you a lot of other detail on that three-legged stool that I did speak about briefly. So check that out. I appreciate you all. Have a great day, evening, or night from wherever and whenever you're listening and now even watching. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye. Hey everyone, I know in the beginning I did mention the general adaptive principle, but it's actually a general adaptive potential. I know I've mentioned that multiple times back and forth in there. General adaptive potential. So have an awesome day. Just wanted to clarify that. I'll see y'all soon. Bye-bye.